Stan, you said, I feel threatened.
Yes, sir, I do.
Who do you feel threatened by?
Christine, Christine Bradley, the prosecutor.
This prosecutor.
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Christopher Barris, the attorney for YNW Mellys' ex-girlfriend and her mother, comes on to talk about his client's testimony and has some strong words about the prosecution and law enforcement. Mr. Barris represents YNW Mellys' ex-girlfriend, Mariah Hamilton, and her mother, Felicia Holmes, both named as witnesses in this case. Christopher, thanks so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Let's start from the beginning. How did you get involved in this case representing these two important witnesses?
I entered the case after the trial judge had issued writs of bodily attachment for both Miss Holmes and Miss Hamilton. Writs of bodily attachment, essentially bench warrants for their arrest as witnesses. There was another attorney involved before I came onto the scene. Before me, don't know his name, but he was intimidated by the prosecution.
What do you mean intimidated?
The state threatened him for refusing to disclose information about the whereabouts of Miss Holmes and Miss Hamilton. And not that he knew. I don't believe he knew the whereabouts anyway.
Did the state, when you took over, did the state ever try to intimidate you, threaten you? Because we're going to get to that in a minute.
Yes. No, the state did not intimidate me. I've done dozens of murder trials.
Second person saying that the state did something
dozens
like
of
that.
prosecutors, good ones, bad ones. Miss Bradley was very professional with me.
And you're referring, of course, to the prosecutor in this case, which is what I want to get to, because this is the real meat here. Okay. So when Miss Holmes, your client, was called to the stand by the state, this was really interesting. Her testimony, she was being questioned about statements that she made to law enforcement that the defendant allegedly called her daughter on the night of the killing, saying that he was a victim of a drive-by shooting. But it got quite fiery between Miss Holmes and the prosecutor. Let's play a little portion of that.
And in terms of
she says she feels threatened.
Your appearance here today, you don't want to be here.
You made me come here.
I did.
Yes, you did.
And in terms of you were served with a subpoena.
Never served.
And so you were ordered by the court to show up.
You never served me originally. The state basically has me on a monitor. I have to go to my job with this. It's embarrassing. People think I'm a criminal. The state has run my life.
And in terms of your feelings and ill will towards the state and myself,
I just feel like you lock up innocent people.
have I ever any sort of physical violence against you?
What?
Do you have any written threats from me?
It's intimidating. You've intimidated me this whole time.
What?
Can you explain that?
Well, it started way back in 2018 when they were initially interviewed by the
I ain't
police.
seen nobody else talk
I believe
about
it was
that.
Detective Moretti. He threatened both Miss Hamilton. Now that's Miss Holmes' daughter, Mariah Hamilton, the other witness. That was issued a writ of bodily attachment. There is a threat to both of them for arrest related to the homicides. Now, at that time, Miss Hamilton was only 17 years old, a juvenile. So, the impact on her was quite severe. And that's where the threat started. Now, I believe Miss Holmes said that she had never received a subpoena, a witness subpoena or a deposition subpoena. I have yet to see a witness subpoena or deposition subpoena for either Miss Holmes or Miss Hamilton. What happened was Miss Holmes went on a vacation. She was arrested on her way back to the United States. So she was arrested overseas.
What?
She spent some time in jail at that foreign location. She was extradited or brought back to Fort Lauderdale, Broward County, where she was detained in jail for another 3 or 4 days. There was an ankle monitor requirement when she finally did get in front of the judge,
You had to go
and
through
she
all
had
that?
to suffer that for several months now until her recent testimony at trial.
What?
Well,
For
just
what?
to
as far as
clarify this, and just to make sure we're understanding, so you're saying it's not that she necessarily knew that she was being requested to testify at the court, because you're saying that she might not have gotten the appropriate paperwork. It wasn't intentional for her to do this, but she was when she found out, she was then intimidated and threatened by the prosecution. I'm trying to make sense of it, because you know what the prosecution was saying is that she was deliberately trying to not appear in that courtroom, maybe as a way to protect YNW Melley or not be part of the case.
Well, that's not really true. And this is why I was employed. I was employed to help the situation. I went to court at one point for both Miss Hamilton, Miss Holmes, to try to get the judge to, and this was, we had discussions, or I had discussions before with the prosecutor, Miss Bradley, about this. And I came to court and I spoke with the judge, and, I had both Miss Holmes and Miss Hamilton waiting in the wings to come into court. But the precondition for them to appear was, again, that the judge would have already vacated the arrest order that he had issued, previously. That didn't happen, and it's still yet to happen with respect to Miss Hamilton, who is still under threat of arrest.
Do you think the state is being disingenuous when they were pressing Miss Holmes on this, saying you failed to make court appearances, we issued you a subpoena, trying to? You think their state is being disingenuous with the jury about Miss Holmes' actions and intentions?
As far as the subpoena goes, I have yet to see a valid subpoena that was served upon Miss Holmes to be a witness or to be a deponent before the trial began, of course. So, and I haven't seen one for Miss Hamilton as well.
So what he's saying is, by saying he hasn't seen one yet at all, that's telling me they just didn't do one. Because if they did do one, shouldn't it be typed up somewhere? Shouldn't there be like a carbon copy somewhere? Shouldn't there be like at their level? I mean, the older I get, the more government related things I get involved in, I start to realize, yo, bro, like, not everyone operates at a professional level that you think they should be operating at. Because when you look at, like, I don't know, the printers, you would assume that the printer they use should be something that could store memory, and like you could check, all right, what was printed on this day, that day. You would assume that at this level, nothing is like printed and then discarded. It's stored for years, months in some file or cabinet somewhere. But it don't always work out that way. It don't always work out that way at all.
Before the trial began, of course. So, and
Right.
I haven't seen one from Miss Hamilton.
Right. So you'd assume that if they did send out one, there should be a copy somewhere. You feel me? Or there should be some receipt somewhere, the post office, something. But nah, nothing. So maybe y'all just never sent one, and because you could argue maybe she just didn't get it and it went to another address or whatever. But then that would give them the, well, we did it excuse, right? But if you can't find no documents or nothing at all saying this was done, then the defense could come in saying, well, you can't prove that you did it at all. You see what I'm saying?
Hamilton as well. It is true that neither witness wanted to appear.
could allow these
Uh,
women to not be
but
considered witnesses.
I had arranged for them to do so in order to vacate the arrest order and for them to give the basic information that they had to give.
Why did they not want to appear? Because if they had information about what might have happened that night, why wouldn't they want to testify about it?
Well, they were they were threatened early on by the police with arrest for on some charge related to this homicide, and that threat was never addressed in court that day. We never got to it because the arrest order hadn't been vacated, and my witnesses would not appear without that. That was the condition again of them appearing that day.
Mm-hmm.
So they felt that they were in constant threat of arrest. If they were to come, they were going to be arrested. If they were to say anything, they were going to be arrested.
Right. Mm-hmm. Let me ask you this. There was a point in this cross, and I want to play you this. It wasn't even cross-examination. It was just direct examination by the state, where prosecutors were insinuating that Miss Holmes and Miss Hamilton were promised to be financially taken care of by YNW Mellys and his team, and maybe Miss Holmes was upset when that didn't come to fruition. I want to play that right now and get your thoughts.
So, Ms. Holmes, is it your statement testimony that you never stated the promises that were made to us by YNW for me to quit my job and they would take care of us for all lies? They didn't want us talking with prosecutors, but now they've all disappeared. You never said that before.
I don't understand.
Objection, Your Honor. Move for mistrial.
Thank you.
What'd you make of that, sir?
Again, if Miss Bradley had a factual basis for asking that, okay. I don't know anything about any financial offers, financial gain. I've known Miss Holmes and Miss Hamilton for a couple of years now. I don't have any evidence of that myself. I haven't seen anything like that.
Okay. Talk about Miss Hamilton. Do you think she's going to testify, or will she be called to testify?
Again, I don't know that she received a subpoena.
Yeah.
Also, I mentioned the threats that were made to her as a juvenile at the age of 17 by Detective Moretti. Moreover, the prosecutor has yet to ask the judge to vacate his arrest order for Miss Hamilton. That could happen. Miss Bradley wanted it to happen. She can ask tomorrow, or not literally tomorrow, but in court when court resumes.
What would she testify to if she was called to the stand?
I don't know what questions they would ask her. I imagine they would ask her similar to Miss Holmes. About the phone call that was received in the early morning hours of this killing. I suppose she can testify to that. But beyond that, I don't know
what the phone call was
what
about,
else they would
if there
ask
really
her,
was a fight,
or if it would be
if
something
there
that
was
she
any
could testify about. Miss Hamilton is still under
disagreement
threat
between
of arrest.
them that
There's a
she may
bench
know
warrant
of.
for her arrest. I don't understand how difficult it is or would be to find her, to testify. I'm not a policeman. I don't have any investigatory, means.
But you're right. If they could find them in another country and arrest them,
find her,
you could find her here if you wanted to.
It's possible that she does have exculpatory information that she could offer in this case.
And by that, you mean evidence that would exonerate, that would show that that YNW Mellys did not commit this crime.
Yes, exactly.
And again, is there any indication why you believe she might have that evidence? Because you're saying it seems like the state is reluctant to call her, maybe because they feel that she has information that wouldn't be good for their case, even though it's their duty under the law. If they see exculpatory information, they have to turn it over.
My understanding, what happened is after the shooting incident, Miss Hamilton and Miss Holmes both went to South Florida to see Mellys and also to see some other people there who were with Mellys at the time, including the co-defendant. I believe he was there. I can't remember exactly if he was there when they got there or not. But basically, after that, Miss Hamilton spent a significant amount of time with Mr. Demons. Okay, and also she had a chance to talk with him, and also the co-defendant, who's also not going to testify, in my opinion, at this trial. Okay, so what she could offer, it was never really explored because of these threats. And I'm talking about threats from law enforcement and from the prosecution, not from the defense attorneys.
But defense attorneys, from as far as you know, his defense counsel didn't interview her, didn't interview Miss Hamilton.
No, that's correct. As far as I know, he's never met Miss Hamilton, never spoken with her, interviewed her, deposed her. But he couldn't, again, because of the threat of arrest that was made to her and never revoked, so to speak. And the arrest warrant that was issued, which also was never vacated. So it's I'm not sure what I'm trying to say, but it's tricky because on the one hand, they want this witness to come. I think they want the witness to come and testify, but maybe they don't want her to testify about all the truth, and they've scared her off away from that by these threats of arrest.
And is there anything more you can tell us about that FaceTime call? Yeah. The call that YNW Melley allegedly made to your client on the night of the shooting. That seems to be the crux of it, that he called her after the shooting.
I don't know if that was Melley talking on the phone. I don't know whether it was Bortland talking. I think that needed to be explored. I think Miss Holmes was in the house that.
Why would he say that?
Morning hours with Miss Hamilton, and she was. I think Miss Holmes was just saying what she overheard. I think she testified that she saw Melley there, but I don't know whether the voice that whoever called her was actually Melley or it was someone else.
Well, she was keen to say she doesn't remember what really went down or what she told law enforcement. I think that was the source of the controversy of Miss Holmes' testimony.
Okay, I understand that. I think the major problem for her though was the 2018 interview by Detective Moretti, where she and her juvenile daughter, Miss Hamilton, were threatened with arrest. I think that was the major problem there.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, Mr. Barris, I appreciate you taking the time. I know this is really a case that's followed by many people. You are connected to it based on your two clients. We will see if Miss Hamilton takes the stand, but I appreciate you giving some perspective on what we've seen and what we can expect. Thanks so much for taking the time, sir.
You're welcome.